All right, Tom, who is up first for the question and answer live
Oh,
session?
we've got Shlomo up first.
All right, pal, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so my first question is, we talked about this before with creativity. So how do you balance creativity with business, like with content and marketing? How do you know when to be more innovative and bold and when to kind of pare back and not use your creativity and be more simple?
All right, Tom, since it's on balance, I want you to kind of start there, and I can certainly dovetail in some other stuff about the flipping back and forth parts.
Yeah, I think, this is, you're asking a balance question. And you know that I am averse to that word balance. And I don't like that word balance whatsoever. It's about harmony, right? So, I think that you have to allow the time, and I hope this is answering the question, allow the time in your schedule where you're going to be creative and the other parts where you have to be more business oriented. I think that you can't pit one against the other. I don't think you can make it even. I don't think it would ever come out even. I think that there is a time for the creative process to take place. And I think there's time for you to work on your business. I think that creative space, like when we talk about attention management, for example, we talk about, 4 different zones of where you're thinking and paying attention. And a lot of times that creativeness comes from either where you visualize things and you daydream a bit, or you're working in flow because that's where your natural area is, right? I think you have to cater to what naturally works well for you first, and then be very conscious about making the time and taking the time to work on the busier work, which may be more business for you. I think you have to find what's the more natural thing for you to lean into first, and then take the other thing and create and carve out the right sections of time to be able to do all of that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it answers part of it. I think just to clarify, I'm also talking about, when you get into areas like marketing or putting together your web pages, right? When you get into those sorts of things, obviously in content, in content, you're trying to imbue your personality into it and your story.
Right.
And so there's an element of creativity there, but then there's also, you're always trying to simplify to make things clear to the audience. So it's a little bit more in that. It's like when you're communicating as the business, and to lean more into that creative voice, especially when I do such creative work, versus leaning more into that like simple, like message done.
What are you struggling with currently that's making you ask this question?
I think a lot of different things. I mean, I recently revamped my profile just to try to be a little simpler. And I think I did it in a way that felt creative to me, but I got some feedback that it wasn't like direct in the way that someone wanted. Like I didn't just have clothing everywhere. Like even though all my content is about clothing, and even though it's pretty clear what I'm talking about, but that it's not like in your face, in my banner, like that there's not just like garments and people like all over.
Okay, that's why I'm asking this, because there's a point in every single business where we all have creativity. You don't create a business without creativity. I don't care if you're selling, SaaS, software as a service. I don't care if you're just doing that. There's some creativity that comes along with like maybe how you put your system together or what it actually does. There's always creativity. And what happens is we all get to a point where it's like, I got to go sell the thing now. And it can always be improved. It's never going to be good enough for you. Okay. So I want you to understand it, because for me and my business, for Tom and his business, it's never good enough for us. We're always working on improvement. But there's a point that it says it's good enough, right? It's good enough to go to market, right? And then we can start working on that. The task of like, I can't be creative anymore should never end. But there has to be a point where it's like, is this now relevant to the audience I'm trying to bring it to? When we get in our own ways, sometimes we go past it's relevant and get back into creativity where it makes a lot of sense for us. And the reason why, Shlomo, is we've been on that entire journey, but the client has not. So we understand, well, 3 months ago, we did these things that allowed us to understand this stuff, which brought us here, and it makes sense to us. But then we may put it out in the world and people are like, I don't get it. Like, why aren't you just telling me this thing or doing that thing? And you are like, well, I understand it, but they weren't along that journey with you. Okay. So what I'm telling you is that it has to go to market with some relevance. Okay. And then as it becomes relevant, you will get feedback on why. right? They're gonna be like, oh, that made so much sense because, and then I have something called confined creativity or bound creativity. All right. One of my other logos for one of my other companies is built upon this. And what it means is that when you are put in a box, you are bound by, I can only create inside of this box. You actually become more creative inside of the box than if you were let free outside of it. So imagine if I told you, Shlomo, the only thing Adam Hurd is allowed to wear is blue and brown. Would you have the ability to be more creative with that? Or would you be like, man, I really wish there was orange and purple and teal and, or would you be like, no, I can be creative inside of orange and brown?
Oh, I mean, I can absolutely be.
Sorry, blue and brown. Sorry.
Blue and brown.
So my point is what you are explaining is what you already do for your clients. And by the way, for any of you who don't know, Shlomo actually gives me style advice. Not all of my style is his, so I don't want to put any bad vibes out there for some nonsense I'm wearing. Like right now, he would never allow me to wear this, I'm sure. But when it makes sense, like today's lunch that I had to go to, he helped me along with that, and he's helped me pick out clothes and do this. So I value what Shlomo does. You're really, really good at it too. And I know you know how to have bound creativity. Because that's actually what you're doing for your clients. You're saying, hey, here's the stuff that's right for you. Let's stay in that box, but be really creative inside of it. So now when you're going out there and getting that feedback, I wish there were clothes everywhere. You could say, all right, well, let's say we had to put clothes everywhere. Okay, let's say we had to. I'm not agreeing with you yet, but let's say we had to. Well, how would I be creative about that?
Right.
And it opens up a whole new door of expression for you that is relevant and then brings the clients on the journey that they said matters to them.
Yeah. That actually just gave me an idea like on the spot. So that's fun.
Great.
Go try that out after this call.
To sum it up, what it really means is that there's a point that it's good enough to go to the market, and then you can innovate on top of that. But you really can't take left turns and right turns. It's continuing forging forward with that. Does that help you any bit?
Yeah, I think that's helpful. I mean, that was just what sparked it. But I think that, yeah, like figuring out, I think some of it's just going to be a little bit of that trial and error also. It's just when you come to an issue, trying to tackle it with one and then seeing if that works.
What it has to be is a point where it's saying like, okay, I'm gonna put this out there now.
Yeah.
Right. And then maybe that garners feedback in order to make the next decision. But there has to come a point where it's like, okay, we're gonna put this out there now.
Yeah.